like the number of casualties from military conflicts in the last decade is like less than how many men choose to take their own life in 1 year.
Whoa. Taking on video game addiction, solutions for gamers.
I think the diagnosis of the problem is beautifully put, right?
Healthy gamers education for people understand. This is so stupid. This is so like corporate. It's like, why put this here?
And I think the best thing, I think chat was
just like say your ideas. Like, what the fuck is that?
Talking about this. Why do I feel like shit even though all of my necessities are met? And I also like this sentence. Almost everything that's enjoyable feels like it lacks substantial meaning.
Okay, so like I'm gonna answer this before he does, right? So he asked. Let me go back one more time.
Almost everything that's enjoyable feels like.
Okay, so people who do things in life and then they find no enjoyment out of it, right? Like, or maybe they used to at one point, maybe they don't, or maybe they never did, and they see other people are more happy doing the same actions, and they think, well, why don't I feel that way, right? So it could be multiple reasons, but each one comes down to the same thing. It's like all about preference, right? So if you prefer to do certain ideas or certain actions like over others, and how that relates to your values, and the issue is that to have a preference, you must have first intelligence, right? Because every choice you make is like a judgment, and every judgment is based on like reason. Everything that that affects your preferences, therefore, can be proven as like how irrational or rational were those choices, right? And this actually affects your taste and your like your sense of life. Like for example, like even your taste in music or art, right? So like you can this is how you can kind of prove certain things in art to be like objectively wrong or objectively bad. Not everything, like in music, it's still kind of up in theory at the moment. I haven't come up with a way yet, but with other things like hobbies or preferences, stuff like that, those can be always attuned to reason. If I hear a lot of people talk about how they don't have like they do these things that they don't feel well. It's actually I should go back to the beginning. So there's two reasons, right? There's two camps of this. One is the group that says, I have done these things in the past, they brought me joy, and now they don't, right? So to answer that one, it would be a lot of times it's like those people who dwell in nostalgia, like, oh, when I was young, I used to be happy with just playing video games and like eating pizza with my friends or whatever the fuck, right? Watching a movie with my family or going out, doing things that the point is like relative to the where they are now, they're roughly mundane, right? But like they remember that was more enjoyable, but now things that he would think his younger self would seem more impressive or not, right? So the answer to that would be he is overvaluing the past, right? He's overvaluing things that he doesn't have introspection over anymore. So the same psychological tools that he analyzes himself over now aren't the same as he has when he was younger. When he was younger, he did not have the same introspection skills or even the people around him to critique his ideas in the same level he has now. Sorry. So sometimes people grow up with like a good rationale, right, about like how to introspect, but they may not have the enjoyment or the values in their modern life, in their day, when they're older, right? So this is how people overvalue things in the past, like nostalgia. And then the second group is, I felt like I don't get enjoyment out of anything ever, right? Those people are irrational, and they have not found any values or have tried to genuinely find or create a value hierarchy.
It lacks substantial meaning. So the first thing is, I want to know, like, do you guys want me to read more stuff, or do you guys actually want to talk about things? I am kind of confused about... I feel like I should talk about this. But I need to know... Okay. So the first thing is, do you guys know how... So in the last 7 years, do you guys know how much the suicide rate under the age of 18 has changed? Let's start there. It's a yes or no question. Well played. Yeah. So it's gone up by about 50% in 7 years. Right? And that's crazy. So the first thing is, I think if you guys are making observations about the world, do your best to find data. Okay? So I think it's fine to have theories, and the internet loves theories, right? Like, people on Reddit are, like, always posting their opinions about shit. But ultimately, I'm a scientist, so...
He's a scientist. No opinions here.
Like, I want data. So
I want data.
First question is hero leukemia's premise correct? Are people suffering at a greater rate than they used to? And actually, the answer is yes. So we have evidence. So mental health has now surpassed
Oh shit, look, you see how he readjusts himself in the chair? His shit's getting real.
Cancer and cardiovascular disease in the United States is the #1 contributor of morbidity and mortality. Mental health now costs this nation more than cancer and heart attacks. So it's crazy, but the data actually supports exactly what hero leukemia is noticing, which is that, like, the primary problem we face today is not physical, it's mental. So as we look back, like, let's say 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years, the main sources of stress or challenges that humans faced were not mental, they were physical. Like, people had trouble finding enough food. People had trouble getting eaten by, like, lions and tigers. People had trouble, like, dealing with winters. And there are, like, these, like, famines and stuff from, like, the early 1900s and 1800s that, like, wiped out large swaths of people. Like, there was a flu in the last 100 years, I forget which one it was, that wiped
I'm waiting for the point.
out, like, 15 to 30% of the population of Europe or something. Like, 15% of the population died from the flu. The flu doesn't really kill anyone anymore. So the challenges that... Was it Spanish flu? I don't remember. So the challenges that humanity is facing are changing. Like, it's not infections that are killing us anymore. It's not even like... I mean, chronic illnesses are killing us, but we've gotten way better in terms of, like, cardiovascular disease. The leading cause of, like, problems in people's lives now is mental health. So the question is why?
Okay, so mental health is bad. A lot of people have bad mental health. That's kind of like what he took a really long time to say.
Why? And I think the answer, in my mind, is just... It's a little bit simplistic, and it's because we're not worrying about the other shit anymore, because we don't die from it.
Remember, he's a scientist. No opinions here. But then he says, the answer in my mind.
Like, I could get the flu, but, like, I don't stress about the flu, right? What I stress about now is meaning, fulfillment. And at the same time that we're sort of in the process of conquering physical illness, our brains are being assailed by technology. So I don't think we realized what we were doing when, like, you know, people talk about the end of the world being, like, nuclear apocalypse. You guys know what I think is going to be the end of humanity? You know what I really think is going to be the end of humanity? Virtual reality girlfriends and boyfriends attached to sexual instruments with haptic feedback. Does anybody know what
The fuck?
virtual reality girlfriends and boyfriends attached to... I think it's going to be the end of humanity. You know what I really think is going to be the end of humanity? Virtual reality girlfriends and boyfriends attached to sexual instruments with haptic feedback.
That was a really big switch. So he's talking about mental health, and then he jumped to the apocalypse of sex dolls. Realistic sex dolls. What's the problem?
Does anybody know what that means? Do you guys know what haptic feedback is? So, like, someone is going to develop a device. Like, so about 15 years ago, I was involved with, my dad was actually involved with a really interesting, like, cancer diagnosis device. So this was back when, like, well, this is still going on, but I don't know if you guys know this, but, you know, like, the Middle East has a lot of American institutions that are opening up branches there, like, especially hospitals. So, like, Cleveland Clinic and, like, Duke and things like that are all, like, opening up, like, medical, like, hospitals and stuff in the Middle East, like, especially, like, around the UAE. And so my dad was involved in the production of a device, which was a glove, which would allow him, so he puts on a glove in Houston, Texas at MD Anderson, and someone in Dubai is wearing the glove. And what happens is the person who's wearing the glove then palpates a breast, right? So, like, when you're doing cancer diagnosis for breast cancer, like, the doctor feels the breast and you, like, feel for lumps. And then what my dad feels, so, like, the glove measures the resistance and then translates that feeling and then creates a sensation on my dad's hand. So he can, like, palpate a breast from, like, 1,000 miles away, right? So, like, the sexual stuff aside, like, it's for clinical diagnosis, right? And so that technology is going to start getting used by virtual reality soon. So what's going to happen is we're going to, like, put on a haptic feedback suit.
That sounds great.
So I'm going to put on a pair of scrubs that has all these, like, pressure sensors.
That sounds amazing.
And what's going to happen is there's going to be, like, some sort of, like, genital device, right? Like, something on the spectrum of, like, a dildo or vibrator or, like, fleshlight or something like that. And there's going to be virtual reality pornography.
Your dad is a visionary.
That you're going to be able to feel. And then, like, somewhere along this doomsday scenario is going to be, like, an AI that's a girlfriend. So you're going to go on virtual dates with an AI that throws temper tantrums. And then, like, sometimes doesn't put out. And...
Wait, what?
An AI that's a girlfriend. Virtual reality pornography that you're going to be able to feel.
Okay.
And then, like, somewhere along this doomsday scenario is going to be, like, an AI that's a girlfriend.
So why is this a doomsday scenario? He hasn't explained why. Why is that bad?
You're going to go on virtual dates with an AI that throws temper tantrums.
And how do you know that they're going to have temper tantrums?
And, like, sometimes doesn't put out. And then you'll be able to, like, have your sexual needs gratified. And then you're going to stop, like, procreating with regular humans.
What do you mean? That's what women today do. A lot of women act that way. Why would you equate that with them? With, like, AI that's programmed to do a specific task? Why would you think that they would fail at that? Like, women don't... There's no similar market of failure, right? With women. But with this AI thing, you can program, like, hey, if they don't put out or whatever the fuck you just said, it's just a bad program, right? Like, its purpose was to, like, be a good girlfriend. Like, why are you saying this? He's, like, purposely trying to discredit that. I don't understand why. I don't even know why he brought this up in the first place.
And then the human race is going to die out. Like, these are the pressures. Like, this is not something that our brain was designed to deal with.
That's not how it works, dude. We weren't designed to sit here and talk to like all these people online and have these headphones on our ears and live in this comfortable AC controlled environment. You know, go to school for like a major part of our life and go to Harvard like this guy did, right? That was not what we're necessarily born to do. If he wants to go to that like argument of, oh, we need to be cavemen, right? We need to go back to the times when we just hunted. This is just ridiculous. There's no point to anything he's saying.
It's scary. And on the other end of the spectrum, like...
Why is it scary? He's just assuming that we think it's scary. Because a lot of Harvard intellectuals, a lot of these liberal fucking college-educated fucking retards, they hate the human mind, right? Almost all psychologists just talk about how feeble we are and how pathetic we are and how almost everything we do is not good, or we're doing everything wrong. Now they don't offer any solutions. They don't offer any alternatives or anything better. They just criticize the mind and how terrible we are. We don't have free will. And that everything modern and everything intellectual and everything industrial and everything that's come from capitalism that saved the world multiple times, and the reason behind it, the mind behind creating all of this stuff, all that it's bad, and we need to go back.
That's like a doomsday apocalypse scenario. But on the other end of the spectrum is the like button. You guys know, like, when Facebook blew up, it was because...
This guy is just going on so many tangents. I don't understand.
Because of the like button.
The like
Facebook
button
was a thing that college kids used until the like button.
Okay.
And we're in a society where, like, there's all this kind of FOMO kind of...
Suicide. Sex robots. The like button.
stuff. Like, people talk about this stuff, right? They talk about FOMO. And everyone was...
You know, I'm not being facetious, right? I know what he's trying to do. I mean, he's having more like a casual talk. It's like live, right? Like what I'm not editing this video, right? Like I'm being live too. Like I make some like grammatical mistakes, not grammatical mistakes I'm talking about, but I stutter a little bit. Like I'm not, maybe I lose my point a little bit, right? But like this guy is going like way off the rails with his tangent.
Envious of other people, but like envy wasn't shoved in your face 8 hours a day. Like you didn't just, you didn't wake up, open up your bedroom window and see a beach with someone else like hanging out on the beach.
This is just a theory, right? Maybe when you're talking about, maybe you're making an argument and you're kind of like losing the point and you don't know like why you're saying what you're saying. So maybe you just like, your mind just comes up with like, wait, just give him another one. Give him another one of those like one-liners, right? Just maybe if you throw that in, if you sprinkle in more of these like fun facts, these statistics, maybe you can get your point across. But the problem with arguing like that or thinking that way or even conversing this way is that you're missing the point of conversation, right? That, like to actually translate the ideas in your head to other people's heads, right? You're trying to translate that as simple as possible without saying overly complicated words or any of that shit. You're just trying to get your idea across. But maybe when this guy is so used to like writing these college papers where you kind of necessarily have to write like in quote adult, right? Or like an educated person where you have to constantly make up new shit. Maybe it translates to his psychology, to when he's talking about stuff. He kind of just goes on so many tangents for that reason.
Beach. And then you would put on your coat and walk into like the Massachusetts winter and then walk to your job and take the subway. Like we're both...
This guy just talks like a woman where he just adds so many like irrelevant ideas to the conversation. Like who cares about Massachusetts winter? Why did he say that?
Bombarded with all of the amazing stuff that people are doing. And so this is kind of like a huge assault on our psychology. Because our brains are designed to compare. They're designed to compare. That's what they're made for. Like monkeys compare.
If he really thinks that that is all the mind does, this guy has no respect for humanity.
Humans compare. It's just what we do. And so technology is taking advantage of all of this stuff in our brain. The other basic problem is as our basic needs get met, like we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like food and shelter and stuff.
Okay. That's when it goes full retard, right? When you use Maslow's hierarchy of... what does he call it again?
All of this stuff in our brain. The other basic problem is
Maslow's
as our basic needs get
hierarchy
met,
of needs,
like,
right?
We think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like...
Yeah, okay. So this is like really simple, basic bullshit that is taught in psychology, and it's very, very big on reducing down something that is so complicated, right? The most complicated thing in the universe is our human mind, right? There's nothing more complex that we know of in the entire universe as a human brain. And reducing it down to a fucking flowchart.
Shelter and stuff are sort of getting taken care of. You have experiments with universal basic.
Not even just like knowing that a human being can only reason, right? Because of his like innate nature and knowing how to understand and replicate ideas, right? So every human being is capable of understanding any idea possible, right? So if I can fathom it, I can describe it, right? It's not like H.P. Lovecraft where we see some fucking demon, or like not demon, but like an alien that we can't comprehend its shape or form. That's not how the human mind works, right? Like every human being can understand anything there is to understand. There is something in the laws of physics that prevent our mind from memorizing everything and understanding everything in the universe.
Income in some parts of Scandinavia. And so previously in society, we needed people to produce stuff for society to function. Like, why do we as a society value jobs? Because jobs were necessary.
This is so anti-capitalist. Why do we... He thinks jobs are just like these like necessary like parts of like modern society. And like, oh, well, what we need is this. We need us, me. You guys need people like me. This fucking Harvard-educated motherfucker saying that we need more of our shitty intellectual leadership to tell us that we don't need anything, that we just need more nothing.
For the function of humanity. Like, you needed to have a cooper to make a barrel, and you needed to have a blacksmith to do things, and you needed to have a farmer. But as technology produces is like...
He just has no respect for like modern ingenuity or like the amazing ideas and the minds behind modern society. And the things that brought him these fucking headphones, which are ass, by the way, and like this house. He probably makes a lot of money too. And so many people like respect his knowledge, and he doesn't actually give any good ideas.
Machines get better. His automation gets better. His lab-grown meat comes online. Like, what do we need people for? We don't need people for anything. It's like we don't need people for stuff. You can now grow in one in one.
It's just like no respect for intelligence.
Story block. You can grow like 1,000 acres worth of lettuce.
Like, how do you know that if the apocalypse comes, even with your stupid like anime pillow bullshit like fucking fuck doll thing, right? You would never know if someone could make it work, right? You never know that if like someone or no, he said specifically that we would not reproduce, right? We wouldn't have babies anymore because we would just have sex dolls, that we would just be in virtual reality or whatever the hell he's trying to imply. I'm assuming that's what he meant. And he doesn't think that maybe we could come up with a way to have babies, or maybe we could come up with better philosophy that could make men and women actually like each other again, right? Or maybe people are just wrong about women being like dumb sluts and men being, you know, like being tricked and manipulated by women all their lives, right? And maybe there is a way to change it all with reason, right? Maybe women just have very bad ideas, and men also have some bad ideas about how women think, and vice versa, right? Maybe philosophical education is what actually we need, and not these crazy doomsday scaring points, right? Of like, we need to do this, or we need to do things that worked before because we can't come up with anything better. It's like that example of like when the world was seen that it was going to get like overpopulated. There were people saying that like there's nothing we can do, like the world's going to end, there's not going to be enough food, and then a guy created the GMOs, right? Genetically modified food, and saved billions of lives. And no one knows this guy. No one ever celebrates this guy. He literally saved countless amounts of people by creating genetically modified food. And now the thanks that he gets is people making fun of this bullshit. Like, oh, well, this is not healthy, this is not organic, or whatever. Or saying that we need to go backwards in time. And we need to go back to a time where everyone just farmed and we just need to have nothing modified. And meanwhile, they don't realize that this guy saved the world, right? Like, this guy, with his mind, with his reason, created a solution to a problem that everyone thought was impossible. And I bet you the same people who say that, oh, well, you know, we were going to get overpopulated and maybe we need to, like, kill people off or some other dumb, evil shit like that, would hear what he just said about the, you know, the VR porn bullshit, right? And be like, yeah, we're doomed. We're hopeless. We need to go back. We need to go backwards. Modern society, the modern Western world, yeah, is not the solution. Even though that's literally what has saved and put them in the position to say that.
Square block, right? We have lab-grown meat, so instead of like pastures and animals, like we can just grow that shit in the lab. And all the big like fast food producers are actually investing in this stuff. So I think it's gonna be edible in the next 10, 15 years. And so human beings don't need to have like, you don't need to work for like food and shelter and stuff. Like in our lifetime, it's gonna happen. So the more that our needs get met, the more we move up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then we get to this thing called self-actualization. And I think mental health is somewhere in that realm, right? Like that's the spectrum of mental health. Meaning, purpose. I'm a no one. And then not only are our needs getting met, but then we have like social media that's telling us that other people are like more important than we are, right? And that's where you get the situation. This is why mental illness is higher than ever before, because our survival, like our other needs are being met. So like the mind is what's left. The mind is where the major source of stress is. If you think about,
I don't see the connection.
Our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight system, was designed to help us against tigers and snakes. And now what does it do? What do we get stressed out about? Mortgages. quarterly reports, getting a promotion at the end of the year. Our sympathetic nervous system was not designed to be active for months at a time, which is what it is now.
What are you talking about?
If you're a college senior with a liberal arts degree and a pile of debt...
If that's a problem, right? So, like, problems are inevitable in life. But I think that this guy thinks that we shouldn't have problems. Or that we should have problems that people back then dealt with. Those problems are in a vacuum, right? So, like, a problem is a problem no matter the context. And human beings, human minds are excellent at understanding reality and doing something about it, right? Like, if there's a problem, what do we do? How do we solve it? Everything in our mind is, like, geared to solving that. Even our emotions, right? They push us towards, like, you're doing something wrong, something's right, like, or things are maybe not changing, right? Which is what, like, depression could be, right? It's like we are not changing. The ideas that you have are not working. Maybe try something else. But people who don't have the ability to introspect that way, or don't have any good philosophy or any tools to combat multiple bad ideas hitting them in their life, right, will just resort to believing that what this guy's saying. That we just need to go to a simpler time. Because that's essentially what he's saying. Like, he's been talking about this for like 10 minutes, but essentially what he's saying is that we need to go back to a simpler time.
Sympathetic nervous system, your adrenaline system is going haywire for a year. It's not designed to do that. We were supposed to see a tiger in the span of 15 minutes, run away, kill it, or get eaten. That's what our nervous system was designed for. It's not designed for...
There's nothing in the laws of physics that prevent our mind with dealing with multiple stress, right? Stress is like cool. It's cool that we can solve problems and that things come up, right? It's actually cool to be in a relationship with a woman and, like, I think I skipped something. And figure out how do I win, right? Like, how do I win the courtship? Now, how do I make her happy or whatever? Or how do I fix the relationship so that I fuck up, I teach her the new ways of actually being a decent woman, because most of the ideas that she's gotten have made her like a terrible woman. And if I don't do it, she's gonna basically treat me like other women treat men, right? Like, or vice versa. Maybe the guy has really shitty ways. It's like everything's like a problem, right? Even like social situations, and there is no like escape from it. But people who see that as like a bad thing, like, they're like very, very off in how to handle anything in life.
But stress literally makes you fat. It literally makes you fat. So when you have
it's just another problem to solve.
Of cortisol,
just solve it.
what happens is cortisol mobilizes blood sugar, so it causes your body to like break down fat and protein and glycogen and put put sugar in your blood. Because the purpose of cortisol was after you run away from a tiger, for the next 4 to 12 hours, the tiger may be sniffing your footprints and maybe showing up. So you need to have a lot of energy available. So your body would put a bunch of sugar into your blood so that you have easily available energy over the next 12 hours.
Sure.
And so what we used to do, like if you see a tiger and you run away, you're gonna hike for the next 8 miles to get away from the area that the tiger's in. That's what cortisol is designed for. Is to provide you with energy so you can hike 8 miles. Now, when I'm worried about making mortgage at the end of the month, like, what do? I sit here in this chair. And so then my body gets confused. My body's like, we have a bunch of sugar in our blood.
See, look, it says, evolve to handle nonstop stress. This guy in the comments, right? But, like, he kind of has the idea. Like, a good idea. But I know that, I know what kind of response he expects, right? Like, when he says this, it's kind of like, he's kind of making it a joke. He's saying it sarcastically. But this is what a lot of people believe, and it's really bad. Because they don't realize that they actually can technically evolve, right? Like, you can be powerful. You can have better ideas that can combat that. Like, if you're in a position where you're just constantly feeling stress, and the reward is just nothing, right? So you're, like, working at a shitty job, and that you hate, or you hate your life, you hate everything you're doing, you're working for, then you need to, like, prioritize your values, right? Like, you don't have the right goal. Like, you're not... It's not, again, it's not normal that stress exists, or like, sorry, it's not abnormal that stress exists. It's abnormal that you're putting yourself in a situation where you know you're getting like bad results, right? So both involve stress, but it doesn't mean that they equivocate that like stress is negative, is bad, and that stress should only happen from like running away from a tiger.
Let's just eat a meal. Let's release some insulin. And then if we release some insulin, then what it's going to do is cause that sugar to be stored as fat. So literally what cortisol does is cause muscle breakdown to increase your blood sugar. And then your body, your pancreas is like, oh shit, we have a bunch of blood sugar because we don't burn it like we used to do. And then it's like, oh, we must have had a big meal, so let's release insulin. So then what happens is you get this. Okay?
Okay.
So, how am I going to do this real quick?
Doesn't he know how to work his own fucking computer?
You get this. This is called the buffalo hump. This is what happens when you have a cortisol tumor.
All right.
This is literally what a cortisol tumor does to your body. Look at that. And this is the shit that we have done. This is what our stress does. We're stressed all the time. This is what's happening to you physiologically. Obesity rates in this country are 30%. Is that due to sugary beverages? Sure. It's also due to stress. Stress literally makes you fat. People talk about stress eating like it's a psychological problem. It's not a fucking psychological problem. It's a physiological problem.
Okay. What's the point, dude? What's the point of this?
Look at this. That we're killing ourselves at a higher rate than ever before. And you could talk about, like gender dynamics a lot. I mean, I think that there's a lot of gender inequality, but I think it's shocking that, let me just think about, let's see if I can find this statistic. Men kill, so 80% of suicides in this country are men, right? Why are men killing themselves? I think we have like something like 30 or 70,000 people a year kill themselves, 30 or 70,000 men a year, which is an astronomical number.
Well, I mean, why would women kill themselves, right? They have everything. They're never in a position where they have to improve.
Like the number of casualties from military conflicts in the last decade is like less than how many men choose to take their own life in 1 year.
And by that, I'm not saying that all men are like cool, right? And that women suck. I'm saying that women are in positions of like never knowing what their bad ideas have consequences to. Like, so like if a man fucks up, he's gonna feel the consequences a lot more strongly and a lot more sooner than a woman, right? If a woman fucks up like her job, like she'll always have someone to help her out. Like guys don't have that, right? Like guys have to work for lots of things, and they have to earn a lot of things that a lot of women don't, right? But I don't think he's gonna talk about this because he's a liberal professor from Harvard.
Like that's staggering. So I do think that there's a lot of gender discrimination in this country and in the world, and I think that things are not equal between men and women, and I think that a lot of men are really struggling right now, and because of all this dialogue around gender discrimination, like men don't feel open about sharing. Like you can't, like the male victim is like, it's hard to be a male victim nowadays, right? Because you're a privileged class. And I see this a lot because I work with like these men come to my office, and it's hard because they can't come. It's like it's hard to be a male victim nowadays, right? Because you're a privileged class. And I see this a lot because I work with like these men come to my office,
Privileged.
and it's hard because they can't.
The men are privileged, huh?
And so I think that the pressures. I think My Hero Leukemia has it spot on. That why is it that most advanced countries in the world are also countries with the highest rates of suicide? It's because the most developed countries push us towards the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So the mental illness is what becomes more problematic. Social media and technology definitely exacerbate that problem. Humans have always questioned the meaning of life, and it seems like we're getting further from the answer as time goes by. Absolutely. Because the meaning of life used to be like you didn't have the luxury of the meaning of life. Like my grandmother grew up with like 11 people living in like a 10 by 10 room. Like literally.
So what? So should we be like your grandma? Should we just never try to accomplish anything amazing? Should we not try to like be like, okay, imagine your grandma, she probably didn't have this fucking air conditioning that you have, right? Someone had to think of that. Someone had to provide value for someone else. That person had to create value with wealth and pay that guy with money, right? That's good. That's an equal exchange of values. That's amazing. It's creating more and more and more wealth, greater and greater like technology to live in a greater life, right? Like we this is amazing. But he makes it seem like it's just too much stress. It's so hard.
Like so the meaning of life was fucking surviving. That was the meaning of life back then. We conquered that. So now we have to find more ephemeral and diaphanous meanings of life. It's these subtle.
Surviving, okay, the same thing as eating food, right? To survive and getting that goal that you really want to accomplish, right? Are the same thing. They're not separate. This is why I don't agree with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Because what is something that you need and as opposed to something that you want are the same. You are the one who dictates that difference. The one, like I said earlier, or I think in this video or my last video, right? So preferences come with intelligence. The better intelligence you have, as in the better way you're able to reason through reality or integrate the facts of reality, is how you can choose which values to pursue over other ones, right? Like, so if you choose to value like getting high all day or kind of like instant gratification kind of shit all day, then of course you're not going to have any goals, right? Like that same person who thinks that and values that isn't going to have an amazing like goal. Isn't going to be the guy who created the air conditioning that this guy's sitting in, right? It had to be someone who valued creating and valued like learning things and figuring out how things work and wanting to think, and not only that, but even wanting to be paid for his work, right? Like we compensated in some way. Not necessarily like by money, but by something, right? It's like what he did was like good. It's a good value. Value for value exchange is not agreed, right? The ideal form of trade, like with an ideal society in capitalism, you would want to and expect money for your work, and that's not a bad thing. These kind of things are like the things that like move society to the point where this guy could be complaining about the throne that he's sitting in at the very top.
It's like purpose, meaning. Like before, it was just about getting by. Like all these boomers nowadays are talking about like lack of purpose because their job was just like they were just trying to get by, and now we're doing a pretty good job of getting by. So now our challenges are more mental.
See, boomers used to be like a joke, right? The term, but now people just use it so many times that even this guy's using it as like a serious talking point.
And I would be a little bit careful about assuming that people were happier before. Like that's a really common bias. I don't really know if I have data to support that. Like everyone says that, right? Like life was simpler when we used to live in nature and things like that.
Data.
I mean, infant mortality used to be something like 30%. I find it hard to believe that like 1,000 years ago when infant mortality was 30%, like people were happier. Like, I'm not sure.
During certain periods. my life. I have